I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So welcome everybody to another podcast of The Truth About Addiction. Today we have a lovely guest. We have our guest Claudia, and Claudia is going to tell us about her experience, strength and hope and the Claudia story. So welcome Claudia. Thanks for coming to The Truth About Addiction.
Thank you.
Thanks, darling.
Well, I guess I'll just start at the beginning.
Yep.
That's a good place to start. I was born in Bathurst in New South Wales, and I was from a pretty good family. Like, I had a lot of love and two parents who were together and siblings, and yeah, pretty happy family. I think Mum had a bit of postnatal depression, and Dad did always struggle with his mental health as well, and he was a big drinker and a big pot smoker.
Okay.
But other than that, like, it was pretty tame, pretty calm, lots of love, lots of nurturing. But I made friends with a girl when I was quite young, and she was from a pretty rough family. So I loved that, the drama, the chaos. So Mum and Dad didn't really know what was going on over there. So I'd just stay there all the time and was exposed to a lot of kind of domestic violence and drugs and things like that. But yeah, I was so intrigued by that naughty lifestyle. I loved going to her house. And also from a really young age, I just felt kind of like I didn't belong in the world, I suppose. And yeah, I think I had a bit of trauma from outside sources, not within the family, but at quite a young age, when I was about 8 and 9, and yeah, sexual trauma. And then at 13-ish, I had my first drink. And I got blackout drunk, wasted, and I loved it, even though I, vomited all over myself, got in a lot of trouble. I just wanted more of it instantly. And I remember my sister, I was on the computer, and my sister wanted to use the computer, and she goes, "If you don't get off the computer right now, I'll tell Dad where you really were on the weekend." And Dad was in the room, and I knew I was going to get in shit.
Yep.
So I went and packed my bag, and I just took off. And that was the first time I left home and ran away. And from that point on, every time I knew I was going to get in trouble, I'd just piss off for a couple of weeks. And then by the time I got home 2 or 3 weeks later, my parents were so worried about me that I wasn't in trouble anymore. So the tactic worked quite well. Yeah, I must say. And yeah, like, it started with drinking, and then it progressed to party drugs, and that was at about the age of 15, I'd say. But yeah, I drank, like, it started with weekends, and then it started to 2-3 nights a week. It just progressed slowly, as they say, addiction is a progressive disease. And that most definitely happened with me. And I was stealing a lot, like stealing from family. I never really stole from friends, but I stole a lot from my mum, which I feel pretty guilty about. There's not that many things I regret in my life, but the amount I stole from my family is definitely one of them. Like, I think I learned a lot and got a lot of life experience from a lot of the other things I did, even in addiction. But the stealing, I didn't really learn much from that. I don't think. So if I could take anything back, it would definitely be that. And yeah, I always, because I grew up in this small town, and I always wanted to get out of there. Like, I felt like fish out of water kind of thing. Like, I was bullied a lot in high school, and it was pretty violent as well, Bathurst.
I know Bathurst.
Yeah, and there's not a lot to do there. Like, there's lots of drinking and stuff. So yeah, I was bashed a lot at parties and things, like, pretty badly. And I can remember I had a lot of chunks of hair ripped out of my head, like, over years, and had to get my hair cut off really short, just so it would all be one length. And yeah, like, so many black eyes. And I remember Mum and Dad brought me a treadmill at one point, because I've always been a runner, and they were worried that I was going to get the shit beaten out of me on my daily run.
Wow.
But I'd still sneak out on the weekends and get the shit beaten out of me anyway. So yeah, I was always a bit of a rebel, I suppose you could say. And yeah, my older sister, we didn't really ever get along that well, just because I think she could see the pain that I was putting the family through. And my younger brother, he was a fair bit younger, so I think like we got on pretty well. But yeah, I started kind of drinking with my dad probably around 15, and he was a big drinker. We'd stay up late, and it just got later and later and later the older I got. And then when I moved out of home and would come back and visit on weekends, it got to like, you know, staying up all night, drinking, smoking pot, just getting completely annihilated. And I remember seeing him like have a few falls and things, and that was really scary for me, just to see your parent kind of in that state.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then it went on. I moved to Melbourne for a year. I didn't really love that. And then I moved to Sydney, and I've lived in Sydney for about the last 10 years before rehab. But things got really out of hand in Sydney. Like I got a drug dealer boyfriend, so it was an unlimited supply of whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. And I modelled for about 5 years, and that started at the age of 20, and that was good because it gave me a purpose other than just taking drugs. And I got to travel a lot through the modelling, like internationally. You know, I lived in Paris and Singapore and Istanbul and New Zealand, all for like 2-3 months at a time. But I'd always go over there and just start hammering the alcohol and whatever drugs I could find. But it was still a really good experience, but there was always a bit of trauma in that as well, and especially with things like body image and eating disorders and stuff like that. Like I think food and exercise was probably my first real addiction, actually.
Yeah.
Because it's in the house and I could control it, I guess. Like before I got my hands on any substances, that was a way that I could change the way I felt, was by stuffing my face, throwing up food, or over exercising, whatever it was. So obviously a career in modelling didn't exactly help that side of things.
Yeah.
And I think women, well, I can only speak from my personal experience, but I think women have a lot of pressure on them in society already as it is to look a certain way. So, and I was, as I said, when I was younger, I never felt like I fit in. So I always was trying to kind of feel better in some way.
Yeah.
And yeah, so the modelling career happened, and yeah, that went on for about 5 years. I had a couple of different boyfriends throughout that time, and it would have been about 24, I think. And my agency had organised for me to go to New York, and I think I'd paid for my visa. I had the flights booked for the following week. Everything was pretty much organised, and my agency asked me to come in you get like bikini digital photos taken, and they take all your measurements and stuff. And I went in and got that done, and then the next day they called me up and basically said the measurements and photos don't make the cut. New York doesn't want you, and neither do we. And that really broke my self-esteem big time. And it was I think it was probably the only thing keeping me from going fully into addiction.
Yeah.
It was work, I guess, and I had to show up for something. So after that happened, it went downhill pretty quick. And that's when I started dating the drug dealer, and that was on and off for about 4 years. And that was pretty chaotic. Like that was all in Sydney. And by the end of the relationship with the drug dealer, I ended up in a drug raid with him, and yeah, he was living with another dealer, and the place got raided, and it was 6 a.m. after a couple of massive days. And I was actually like mid OD on G, or what do they call it up here? Frank. But yeah, and I think about 15 riot squad officers broke down the front door. And I just couldn't believe it was happening. Like I was like, this must be a dream. Like it's gotta be real. Yeah. Am I like tripping out or something, or is this really happening? And it was really happening, unfortunately. And yeah, it got messy. I spat Cops don't like it when you spit,
Mm.
unfortunately. And they ended up like beating the absolute shit out of me and broke my ribs and split my chin open. And for years, I'd had people kind of hinting that maybe things were getting a little bit out of hand, just maybe.
Maybe.
And I was like, nah, I can stop when I want to. I'm just not ready yet.
Yeah.
And then after that whole situation happened, I was like, okay, maybe things are getting a little bit out of hand. Like this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah.
Getting beaten up by police and ending up in overnight cells. And I remember vividly, I was in lockup for about, I think it was probably like 20 hours or something. And my mum found me and came to pick me up, and I was all bruised and battered and bleeding and stuff. And I just remember talking to her through like a plastic screen and like just seeing the absolute terror and heartbreak on her face, like seeing me that way. That really hit me. And then I went to hospital as soon as she got me out of the lockup and just got some scans done and stuff, because my ribs ended up being broken and we didn't know what to do about the police. Their body cameras didn't work that night, of course, as they never do. And a friend of mine, my best friend at the time, came to visit me in the hospital with my brother as well. So it was my mum, my best friend, and my brother. And I'd known that I'd been hurting my family for a while. But this friend came and she looked at me as I was laying in the hospital bed, and she had tears in her eyes, and she was just like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep seeing you like this. And then I realized that was a really powerful, profound moment for me as well, because I realized that, okay, now I'm not just hurting myself. I'm not just hurting my immediate family. I'm actually affecting my friends as well. This is, as they say, addiction trickles out into the lives of everyone around. And that also hit me like a ton of bricks. So I realized that I had to change something at that point, and this was probably about 6 years ago. And Mum said to me then, after this whole situation, she said, like, it's time for you to go to rehab, I think. But they're not the kind of people to force that on me. They believe in me doing that for myself, because I know it's not going to work if it comes from someone else. And I said to Mum, no, I can do it on my own. If I can't, I'll go to rehab. And so I did get clean for 1 to 2 months, and then Christmas came around, and
only over Christmas.
That's what I told myself. I'll stop after Christmas. So I started drinking again, and then started taking drugs again, and that using went on for about 2 years. But since like that, the drug rage was a really pivotal time in my life, like a real turning point for me, I think. And since that experience, I didn't get any enjoyment or relief from drugs. So for about 2 years, I see it as I was using against my will, basically, because I didn't want to do it. I didn't get any relief from it. As soon as I consumed the substance, it was like, I'd feel worse than I did before. What am I going to do? Like, I can't use drugs. I can't not use drugs. I can't kill myself. I tried that a few times. Like, the only option now is to try and, do recovery, and be serious about this. So I put my hand up finally after those 2 years and said to Mum, like, I need to go to rehab. And that was about 1.5 years ago. And I went to a rehab in Sydney, which was a month long. And I was introduced to the other fellowship when I was there, and I got into that, and I made a good little close group of friends. But I didn't really branch out. Like, once I met about 3 girls my age, I was like, okay, cool, I've got friends in the rooms. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I didn't, talk to any older cleaners, or I didn't branch out. Like, I had a sponsor that I barely spoke to and didn't really tell the full truth to either. I did work the steps. I got up to like step 4.5, I say, because I read half of it to my sponsor. But I just got complacent, and at about 6 months I picked up again. And it started with prescription Dexies, which I'd been prescribed for ADHD in the past. And I also went back to work way too soon, I think. because my addict brain clicked in and said, you need these to work, you need these to function, and they're prescribed, so it's fine. So that went on for about a month, I'd say, and then I found that whenever I took that kind of stimulant medication, after a period of time, I needed something to bring me down at night, of course. So then the pot came back in, and for 3 months I continued in the other fellowship saying that I was sober 7, 8, 9 months. And then 3 months into that relapse, I was like, this isn't stopping. I think I picked up the pot on New Year's, and I said, I'll stop at the end of this week, I'll stop at the end of the holidays, I'll stop before I go back to work. I just kept pushing it back. And eventually I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have to put my hand up again and get some help. And so I did again, and I went to another rehab in Sydney, and it was a really good rehab. I did a lot of like really deep trauma work there. It was a month, and then I don't know what made my head click and made me realize that I need something a bit longer term. But while I was in that rehab in Sydney, the second one, I just went, I think I need longer than a month this time. And I knew I didn't want to do the rehab shuffle for the rest of my life either.
It's boring.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be in early recovery for the rest of my life. Like, it's pretty painful. I was like, I really want to get this time so I can move on. And I feel like I'm almost 30, so I want to get a handle on my life so I can have a life before it's too late as well. So I looked at coming up somewhere out of Sydney, and somewhere a bit more long term, and I wasn't willing to do like 6 months, and that's all I could find in New South Wales was 6 months or 12 months. So I came up to a rehab up here on the sunny coast, which was 3 months, and that was really good and very strongly 12-step based. And that's when I started doing NA, and we do a meeting a day in there, which is amazing that they run that kind of program, because that's rehab's not going to keep you clean.
Exactly.
Program's going to keep you clean. Program on the outside world. And when I started doing NA, I really felt like I'd found my people. And I didn't feel like I had to pretend anymore. In the other fellowship, I kind of felt like I had to hide some things. And NA, I could really take that mask off and just be myself. I was there for 3 months, and then I had no intention whatsoever of doing the like exit house program. I didn't think it was really an option for me financially either. But then I spoke to Mum one day when I was in the rehab, and she said, "Oh, I've been speaking to the rehab and they're talking about this transitions thing. Are you thinking about doing it?" And I was kind of like, "Oh, I didn't even know I could do it." And then I decided to do that program as well, which I'm really glad I did, because again, there's like a structure of having to do a meeting every day, 2 meetings for the first 30 days. And I need that structure. I felt in the first rehab I did, I felt pretty confident. Like, I was like, I can do this on the outside. I'll go to meetings every day, but once, it takes 3 months to build a habit, and I need something behind me kind of pushing me in the right direction. And that's what this experience up here has really given me. And I've got a sponsor, a really good sponsor, who I tell the truth to this time and speak to like every second day. I spoke to her every day in the beginning. I'm like 5.5 months clean now. So almost at the 6-month mark, which is big. And this time last year I was almost at the 6-month mark as well, that I picked up on New Year's last year. So I know that I've got to be really vigilant over this next period and keep in close contact with my sponsor and with all the connections that I've made up here. And that's something that I've done differently in this recovery, is I've reached out to people. And last time I didn't do that at all, really. And those connections have really, really helped my self-esteem and my ability to exist in the world, really. And something I didn't mention was that after the drug raid, what kept me clean for a few months was because I had the rib damage, and I'd always been a runner, as I mentioned. I couldn't run, obviously, with that injury. And I was like, I need to do something. Like, I'm not doing drugs. I can't run. And I started doing yoga, and I just started doing it on YouTube. I was living with my mum in an apartment in Potts Point. We had a bloody awesome rooftop with a view. And I think I spent most of that 2 months on that roof doing yoga, and it built my strength up again, like physically and mentally. And that's when I started to realize that there's something out there that was bigger than me. And that was really overwhelming, going through that. I felt very alone in that, I think. Just not really having anyone to speak to, because I was basically still friends with all my using friends. And but I kept seeing these things in my life occur, and I was like, that can't be coincidence. Like, that's pretty crazy that that's happened. And even simple things like, if I did yoga in the morning, I'd find a park really easily. I'd get all the green lights, the guy at the juice bar would give me a free protein ball or something like that. And I was just like, why is everything working out so well? And then on the days that I didn't do yoga, I'd get every red light. And that was my introduction into spirituality. And I did a yoga teacher training course as well, which kind of deepened that. But what really helped was coming into a fellowship where I met other people that were having similar experiences, and that I could start to share that stuff with those people, because it was a bit isolating, and I felt a bit like, what is going on, when it was just me going through that.
Oh, mate, look, I believe that 100%. Everything happens for a reason. I believe you're here today for a reason.
Totally.
There's a reason my whole experience with recovery has been when the pupil is ready, the teacher comes. And that's been with everything. And the thing with early recovery is that you're open, and you unconsciously you're not aware of what's happening, but something's happening. That's when you got to have that blind faith. We used to say, fake it till you make it. As far as just trust the guts, trust the feeling, trust that you're in the right place at the right time. And the therapeutic value of one edge helping another is without parallel.
Totally.
I would never have got clean if I didn't find like-minded people. Never.
Sure.
I would never have got clean through psychology or religion or medicine. And medicine to me was methadone. That was going to work. But and the thing that I realised, and I think you're coming to those terms now, is that that's something greater than you. That power that you feel outside of yourself is really the power inside of yourself. And that's when we're starting to realise that we're getting a connection. That's what they talk about, the connection. The connection of, as I said, the therapeutic value one out with another, the therapeutic value of being open to change and having faith that it's going to be okay, and not listen to what your head tells you. Because our disease lives in our head, and our recovery lives in our heart. And I'm a massive believer in vibes, in sometimes you meet people and it's like, whoa,
energy.
Energy. Like, I don't want to go near that energy.
Totally.
And other people we meet across the room, it's like even when we were drinking and drugging. We went to a bar, or we went to a club, somewhere, we're like, oh fuck it, okay. You've got a vibe there, you've got a feeling there, a connection of some type, And when I came to the 12-step program, I actually went to a rehab in 1981 from prison, and in prison I actually felt like I belonged. I did. I actually felt like, because it was like a boys' club. I trained. There wasn't. I like prison because there was no drugs in prison. In the early days, there was no drugs when I went to prison.
No, wow.
I had my first shot in prison. In 1973, 72 actually, and but I felt like I belonged. But I found out later on it was because I was protected from myself, because I couldn't be trusted. If you put me on the street, every time I'd getting ready to be released, I'd say, I'm not going to use this time. I'd have a chemical in my body within hours of being released. I didn't understand that I never had a coping mechanism I didn't know how to live life on life's terms.
Yeah.
So what I did was I put a chemical in to help me cope with my fears, my anxieties, my lack of trust and faith in society. I hated society. I was scared of it.
Yeah.
What you said earlier, I just didn't feel like I belonged, even in my own family.
Yeah.
I didn't. Sometimes I remember laying in bed and thinking, what if I was adopted?
Me
Or-
too. Yeah.
Or the fucking aliens dropped me off at the wrong place?
Yeah.
You know, like, it was just like, I don't know where I'm supposed to be, but this is not where I feel I
Yeah.
need to be. You know, I don't feel like I need to be here. And, you know, the drugs at first felt like they were my friend.
Totally.
And then I found out they were my
pain,
enemy. Yeah, exactly.
temporarily.
Yeah, but they stopped working. That's like what you said, the
Yeah.
last couple of years of using against your own will.
And that's scary.
It's-
Yeah.
You know, every night you go to bed, I'm not going to do this tomorrow.
Yeah. Because I'm not getting anything from it.
As soon as you wake up, it's like, oh, Groundhog
Where's
Day.
that thing? Yeah.
Groundhog
But
Day.
then again, like, that is scary and horrible to be in that situation. But I think it made it possible for me to stop as well.
Yeah.
In a way, like, if I was still getting that relief from it.
100%.
Yeah, there's no way
Yeah.
I would have been like, oh yeah, I'll put this down.
That's what I said to everybody, you know, if drugs kept on working, I would have kept on using them.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah.
I say to people all the time, please don't tell me you hate drugs. You hate the fact that they stopped working.
Yeah.
And you hate the fact that the things you had to do to get them.
Yeah.
And the person you became when you used them.
Totally.
I love drugs.
Yeah.
I love the effect.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever intravenously used a drug, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The first time I ever smoked pot, it was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
The first time I drank alcohol,
Yeah.
I was a kid, vomited, blackout. I relate to that. I was a bad drunk. Alcohol affected me worse than heroin
Wow.
because I just.
Were you a big drinker throughout your addiction? No.
I drank scotch.
Yeah.
I only drank for the effect.
Yeah.
I didn't really like it. I drank because everyone else around me was drinking.
Yeah.
I'm like that out on TV. I don't really like beer. I don't drink beer.
Yeah.
But I drank scotch, and because I was involved in the criminal world, they all drank.
Yeah.
They were all big drinkers, and on the waterside workers, and the painters and dockers, and most of the crooks were big drinkers. But I was never a drinker. I didn't like alcohol. I just didn't like the taste of it, and I didn't even like the effect of it. And I didn't like the fact of being in the blackout because I'm a blackout drinker.
Yeah, I didn't like that either, but I found that when I discovered alcohol mixed with drugs, I wouldn't get the blackout as much.
Okay. Yeah. See, I was really. The minute I found heroin, I never took it. I didn't really take another drug.
Yeah.
Unless I had no heroin.
Yeah.
But if the heroin was there,
no need.
I didn't need anything else.
Yeah.
That was my girl.
Yeah.
That was my girl. That was my baby. You know, she. You know, as I said, she's the most lying, thieving thing I'd ever met. But I was in love with her. I was in love with her.
Obsessed.
Yeah, I was obsessed. I went to any lengths to get it.
Yeah. Totally.
Any lengths. I escaped from prison to get stoned.
Yeah.
I robbed people to get stoned. I did, horrible things to get stoned. And I was talking to somebody the other day, because heroin's got such a physical hook, addiction, the physical, and you get so sick,
you
get violently sick 12 hours. You ever used it?
No.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
12 hours after you've used, you'll get a physical sickness where you'll start vomiting the green bile out of you. And the bile was so horrible that it'd burn your mouth. It's the intestine, it's the acid that kills food.
Yeah.
And then you start getting the shakes, and you start getting the sweats, and you start getting your legs, and the physical withdrawal only lasts about 72 hours.
That's still
But it was
time to be in
intense.
that.
It was intense, it was a massive thing,
Yeah.
And then what happened for me was, towards the end of my using, I started using Ritalin. I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was a new experience for me because
that'd be very different.
It was an opiate.
High,
I'm an opiate user.
Yeah.
Next thing I'm banging away, 20 pills at a time, like just fucking insane, and going into psychosis.
Yeah.
Because there's no psychosis with heroin.
Yeah, totally.
It's like heroin. They go, oh, your house is on fire. You go, yeah, sweat. I like it warm.
Yeah.
Just you just didn't care. Where on the amphetamines, everyone was so intense and so fucking
So can you actually go into psychosis from
Really?
Ritalin?
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah.
I guess it's the same shit.
Yeah.
really,
It's,
isn't it?
it's an amphetamine.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, you know.
Yeah.
So what had happened to me is, in the beginning, like all our drugs, it was fun.
Yeah.
It was really good for sex. It was really good for fun. It was really good
Getting shit done.
and all that sort of stuff, you know. And it gave you this awareness and this alertness, and but it stopped working really quickly. And what happened was me, because I kept on having to use more, that I started getting the visual psychosis, and because I was a criminal, you know, I was already paranoid.
Yeah.
I had to be paranoid. You know, I was robbing, I was stealing, I was selling dope. And, even when I escaped from prison, I was using Ritalin.
Yeah.
You know, people go, oh, you know, how could you use Ritalin when you're an escapee? You're already paranoid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just found it was one of them drugs that really fucked with me. And today I see everybody on this ice, and obviously I've never had MDMA either.
True.
You know, because it wasn't around when I
I
was
got on
using.
that pretty bad in my earlier days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the love drug,
It was.
the
Yeah.
party drug. You know,
Yeah, I loved
everybody
it.
coke and MDMA, like
Yeah.
it's the scene. You know.
Yeah.
It was really something you said that touched my heart. You know, the modelling stuff and the body fucking bullshit that they put on. You know, it's just such a wank. You know, because when I was a kid, a girl with a fat ass, a skinny waist, and big boobs was what they called attractive.
Yeah.
Now that was attractive. That was Marilyn Monroe and this big. It's coming back now with the women are walking around with this big booty with a little waist and all that. You know, people are getting their ribs taken out. You know, and all that stuff. And then it went to that junky, skinny
heroin chic.
They called it. Yeah, it was sad because, you know, I dated a lot of girls that were modelling, and they were heroin chic for a reason.
Totally.
They were on heroin. You know, I mean, that's why they were.
Yeah.
They had no
Pretty
body
messed
fat.
Up, but that's like a common term, isn't it?
Yeah. And I dated a girl. She was all the girls I dated weren't really modelling as such. They were doing photographic modelling, nude modelling, you know, for around the world, doing penthouse and doing some good stuff. You know, and they were getting taken all around the world to Ibiza and getting taken to a really nice place and that. But they were heavily encouraged to take drugs.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, I definitely wasn't encouraged. Like, I think in the 90s there was a lot of coke and drugs, and like that was kind of okay. But when I was doing it, you know, it was all about green juices and beach and you know, being fit and healthy, and drugs were kind of seen as bad. But in saying that, I still use drugs to lose weight for work. Like,
So I remember an English girl that I dated for a little while. She was on the decks to lose weight.
Yeah, totally.
Always.
And that's why
She was always on
got
the decks.
addicted to it mostly. And stuff.
Not hungry. I don't want to eat because I'm on the decks. I'm not hungry. I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
And we're still friends today.
Yeah.
It's really cool. She actually came and met my wife, and
nice.
She's great. She's lovely.
Yeah.
But but it was really weird. You know, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. She was always
at the time.
Yeah, I didn't know. She was off her head. I was clean.
Yeah, true.
I was clean, you know.
And you didn't have any idea. Wow.
I'd never used really, you know, like I'd used some Ritalin.
Yeah.
And but I didn't, you know, she was still functional, but she was using it for the body image, for the weight,
totally.
to lose weight. You know.
And I think like the only reason that I didn't get hooked on ice, because I started fucking around a bit with that, like just kind of prior to the whole drug raid thing. And you know, I'd do it on weekends and stuff, but then I convinced myself that I had ADHD and I needed a Dexy prescription. So I went and I did all the testing, which costs a fair bit of money and takes a bit of time to get those drugs legally. And I think in hindsight, getting that prescription kind of saved me almost from going down that path. But then I was addicted to Dexys and Ritalin for a few years. But I guess it's safer than ice in a way. And probably easier to get off. I don't know how it works, but
yeah, I think it's a lot safer because you're not mixing with that people.
Totally, you're not injecting it. You're not using needles.
But
risking, dirty needles and shit.
Your mental state was still getting to a point where you know, as you said, you know, you were using against your will. You were pretty smart. You had a pretty good awareness that the joy had gone.
Yeah,
and I always say to everybody, has the joy gone?
Yeah.
They go, yeah, so it's time to stop.
Yeah. 100%.
And then I usually say to them, I say, you know, would you let a liar and a thief and a cheat live in your house?
Mm.
They go, no way. So why do you let one live in your head?
Yeah.
They all go like, whoa, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's hectic. And I say, well, it's true.
Yeah.
Because our biggest enemy is ourself.
Yeah.
Our biggest enemy is, it sounds horrible, it's lack of education about oneself.
Yeah.
Because the Western world is so material based and status driven, and you know, especially Australia, the tall poppy syndrome. You know, you know, you're a blue collar worker, you're a white collar worker. What about if you're just a worker?
Yeah, totally.
What about if you're just a human being first?
It's all about what you've got on the outside.
Yeah, the Joneses, keeping up with the Joneses. You know, you always say, you know, worrying about that. See, I came from a really, really poor background as a kid. You know, my man was a gambler, he was a criminal. And as you went up the criminal chain, you got more wealthy, of course. You know, they say crime doesn't pay. You know, I know a lot of really rich criminals. That's being honest, you know. I laugh and they go, oh, crime doesn't pay. I go, far out, you know. All those trips around the world and all those people, and you know, that I know that have just been criminals their whole life and really have never done much for anybody else, you know, never helped anybody. You know, I don't know. But for me it didn't pay because I was in recovery. Yeah. And I was missing out on the spiritual part of this program.
What we were talking about before, that
exactly.
Inner peace.
The inner peace.
Yeah.
And I always was afraid I'm going to lose it all tomorrow.
Totally.
You know? And you live your life like that. And when you live your life on the edge and you think, well, it all could be gone tomorrow, so let's just fucking party today. Yeah. And I did everything but pick up drugs. Yeah. You know, I'd go to parties overseas when MDMA was first being very popular. And, you know, I'd go to big parties, you know, that have, clean, always clean. And as you go through the door, they'd give you a big capsule of MDMA, you know, as everyone went through, they'd have, you know, the girls have the platter and they're giving out the MDMA, you know, one of them parties. And I'd get the MDMA and I'd throw it away, or else I'd give it to somebody else at the party. And then the next day or 2 days later, you'd see the host of them, man, you were so out of it the other night. God, you're funny when you're stoned. And I was clean. Totally. You know, and lots of time, you know, I've had women say to me, fuck, you're on the coke. Look at you, you're smashed. I was totally clean. But I was having fun. Yeah. No,
and that's the only thing that makes people nervous, I think, because I've been to events as well, clean. Yeah. And it's only if I feel anxious and nervous with and being there and within myself, people are like, have a drink, you know. Yeah. But if I'm chill and I've got a glass of water, they don't care, because it's that energy thing again, right? They can sense if you're having a good time and you're comfortable, they don't even ask questions.
What do you say when people offer you a drink now? What do you say to them? I don't drink.
Yeah, well, since being in this last rehab, I haven't been in a situation. Yeah. But usually I try and always have a drink already, so they don't offer. Obviously not a non-alcoholic drink. Yeah. But if I'm at an event, I'll always have something in my hand so that I'm not offered.
Not being offered. Yeah. So I owned a bar in the Philippines, and my business partners in the bar with me. They knew I couldn't drink. I was recovering alcoholic. Yeah. But you get all these wankers that come in, you have a drink, yourself, you know, and just obnoxious drunk people. Yeah. And then my mate would say to him, you know, who was my business partner at the time, he'd say, mate, he doesn't drink. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. And then he'd say, have a drink. Yeah. And then my mate would say, mate, after he has a drink and he beats you up and has sex with your wife, what are you going to say then? Yeah. And then they go like, oh. Totally. And then they stop asking the question. You know? But I just started saying to people, I'm allergic to it. Yeah. I'm allergic to it.
But we are, right?
Yeah. It's the truth. Yeah. Instead of trying to explain why I don't drink, I say I'm allergic to it.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was doing the other fellowship and I was doing like one of those big book workbook things, and there was this page on like how in alcoholics, when we drink alcohol, like our liver actually doesn't process it the same way. And I was like, what? Like my mind was blown. I was like, that makes so much sense. And then that's when the craving sets in and that cycle
and turns to ethanol.
Yeah.
In the brain.
Yeah.
You know, all the physiological stuff that there's a thing I did the other week because I'm involved so much with drug and alcohol recovery stuff. There was this questionnaire, and it was the 25 deadliest drugs in the world, and alcohol is number one.
Yeah. Well, it's just so
alcohol, fentanyl, then heroin.
Wow.
Isn't that funny?
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's what's causing the most problem in our world today.
Yeah, I guess it's
Ice
not
was
readily
about
available.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Ice was about
Yeah.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
And fentanyl was number 2. Heroin was number 3.
How long's fentanyl been around for? Do you know?
Long time.
Long time.
But it's only become popular.
Yeah.
The same as speed. When I was a kid, only truck drivers took speed.
Yeah, I do remember the old school speed. I tried that a few times.
That's what I
loved it.
That's what I took. Yeah, that's what I took. I used to shoot it up. We used to call them speedballs.
Yeah.
You had coke and heroin and speed together.
Yeah, I did a lot of ketamine as well. That was one of my biggest.
Ketamine.
Yeah.
I see. I've never taken that. I don't even know what it is. It's
Yeah.
quite funny because I deal with some young kids these days. I've got some. I just dealt with a couple of 17-year-olds the last couple of months. I've got a program. I've got a program, a private program. Kids do.
Yeah.
And I had to learn a whole new language. Like bricks.
Yeah,
I didn't know what bricks were.
I don't know what bricks are. What are they?
It's Xanax.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because they look like bricks.
Yeah, they do.
And the trap house.
Yeah.
That's where they go to use.
Yeah.
And I say to the kids, "What's the trap house?" So I see older guy's house. So that's the pedophile's house. And they go, "What?"
No.
I go, "Yeah, what? You take some bricks, you wear it sore ass. It's not because of the bricks." And they all laugh. They go, "Like, yeah." I say, "Well, mate, let's call things as they are."
Yeah.
Because the whole new vocabulary. Yeah, it's a whole new language. It's quite funny because I'll start mucking around and I start talking. Yeah, we'll get some bricks and we'll go to the trap house, and they laugh, because But the whole world.
What did you call it when you were using the house that you used? Was there a code for it?
It's just my house or your house,
Yeah.
But I never went to what they call trap houses. I remember them that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Where there'd be some dirty old bloke who was an alcoholic. There's one in particular in my book.
Yeah.
When I escaped from prison, I went straight to his house and bashed him and robbed him. Because he tried to have sex with my girl. He wanted to have sex with her. She told me he tried. He'd give her too much dope. And what he'd do, he'd OD you. Yeah. Enough to knock you out. And barbiturates. And have sex. He was just really a beast, horrible old man. And so, he was, that's what in my mind, I see as a trap house. And when I escaped from prison, I went straight to his house because I wanted to score drugs. Knocked on the door, 6 o'clock in the morning, opened the door, and hit him in the head of the house. Took him inside, took all his drugs off him, his money, and I told him, if I hear about you doing that to the young girls anymore, I'm going to come and do bad things to you.
Yeah.
But so we did have trap house. We didn't call them trap houses those days, but we did have. There was always some family who'd come and let you use, like that. You said that family, you go there. Yeah. I remember as a kid, there was always a house you could go to. Yeah. Where someone's mum was a single mum and she was on the drink. Yeah. Or she was a single mum and she was out with some bloke, so the house was always empty.
Free,
so we could go there and party at their house. That's me as a kid. It was always a house, and I remember a mate of mine's mum went overseas for a month and left the house to my mate. He was about 14. We trashed it.
I trashed a lot of houses in my time too.
We trashed it. We wrecked her car. Yeah. We trashed the whole house.
Yeah, I remember my parents went to. They've always been into music festivals, and they went away. They went to a music festival for my mum's birthday, and I didn't go because I think I'd been a little shit, and they didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars on a ticket for me, or maybe I just said, "Fuck you, I'm not coming," one or the other. Yeah. And I knew they were away, and they'd locked the house up as securely as they possibly could because they knew what I was like. And I just went over there, smashed a window, unlocked it, went in, had a party. And I was so angry. I don't know why I was so angry. Like, I remember getting plates from the kitchen and standing on the back veranda thing and just frisbeeing them out, smashing them out. Why was I so angry at them? I don't know why, really.
More will be revealed.
Yeah.
It will come out.
Yeah.
My mum was a real little lady, 5 foot tall, 4'11" actually. Yeah, my dad was 6 foot tall. He was a big man. He was a horrible person. Big gangster, and he used to beat her up and all that stuff, and I loved my mum. That was my first love. Yeah. Most time, boys' first love is their mother. Yeah. Yours first love is their father. Yeah. And I'd been around recovery for 5 years before before I got clean and stayed clean for the amount of time I've been clean now. And I've done all these 4 steps. And I do 4 steps a lot different to what other people do. I do a life story. I make people write their whole life story. Yeah. And then we go through that, and then you do the because the step working guide wasn't around when I got clean. Yeah, true. So I did it that way, and I still do it that way today. I still do it with people today the same way. Anyone who's You hear them meeting someone said, I'm writing my life story.
Yeah.
They're being sponsored by someone I
True.
sponsor.
We had to do that in the rehab I was in as well. Yeah.
That's been I did my first one in 1981.
Yeah, cool. It was a good process doing
It's
that.
a great process.
Yeah.
It's a great process.
I've always wanted to, but
Yeah.
you know, when you actually sit down and do something like that.
It's important to do it. I think it's really important to do it
Yeah.
because it gives you clarity.
Mm.
And so I'm about 17 years clean. I'm in prison.
Mm.
And I did another one. And then I realised that I had a resentment to my mother.
Mm.
All those years that I'd glossed over it.
Yeah.
And I was resentful to her that she'd stayed with my father through all that horrible stuff that he'd done and all that.
Yeah.
But I detached from it. So I was 17 years clean before I got enough honesty to be honest about it. So I wrote her a letter because she's dead.
Yeah.
Mum died when I was 19 and I wrote her a letter and said, you know, like, I'm fucking pissed off with you and blah, blah, blah. And then I burnt it. I do a lot of that stuff too in recovery.
Yeah.
And things that you can't deal with because of, you know, like, you know, it says, you know, made a miserable ever to do so, except for to do so would injure them or others.
Yeah.
You're part of the others.
Yeah.
So what I do is I encourage people to write letters. If
Yeah.
someone's dead, write a letter. If someone's unapproachable, write the letter.
Yeah.
And then just
Then
burn
you
it.
can at least process it and get it out in some way.
Because making amends is for you, not for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone thinks making amends is about, you know, fixing that person.
Yeah.
It's not. It's about fixing you.
Yeah.
Because
getting rid of that toxic shit inside you.
the guilt, shame, and remorse that you carry around, I call it in the backpack. You've got to get rid of that shit because that stuff's weighing you down.
Yeah. Like
and while you've got that stuff in the back there, you've got no room to put love, happiness, freedom, joy. Because the backpack's full of shit.
Yeah, for sure.
So we unload the shit out and then we put new stuff in, you know?
Yeah, well, I'm doing my step 4 at the moment, actually. So
good.
That's my second step 4. But yeah, doing my resentments and because I did it the AA way last time, and I find the NA way really interesting and a lot more beneficial. I think, like the way the questions are asked, you write more about the answers as well.
We're a lot newer, and that book was only written in 1992, I think. 1993. The steps.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because like you do all the columns, all the questions in the NA steps working guide, and seeing the patterns. And like most of mine are kind of putting up walls, you know, not letting people in, just acting invulnerable, acting like I've got it all together. Being needless and wantless, it's all that same.
And running away.
Yeah. And not allowing myself to be seen or heard. Yeah. I guess like one of my core beliefs is probably like I'm not worthy or I'm unworthy, something like that.
So unrealistic.
Yeah.
You know, honestly.
Yeah.
It is just so not true.
Yeah.
If you, what I do, and I still do it today, with any issue that I have, I get a pen and paper out and I write down the pros and the cons to that thought. What evidence do I have that I'm not worthy?
Yeah.
What are the things I don't like about myself?
Yeah.
When I first started doing that, I could never write what I liked about myself. Now my list of what I like about myself is 50 times bigger than what I don't like about myself.
Oh, that's nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the growth.
Yeah.
Now that's something you should try.
Yeah.
And I really recommend that you do that life story.
Yeah. Well, I have.
Yeah.
Because we did it in the
and then burn
rehab. But
so
I want to keep it.
Yeah, it's not as deep.
For a record.
Yeah, is there stuff there that you don't want anyone ever to read?
Not really.
Okay, yeah, cool.
I read it out in front of people.
Yeah.
We had to in the rehab.
Yeah.
That's hard.
That's a different, it's the same, but different, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I read my first 4 steps I read twin daughters, 40-year-old twin daughters.
Yeah.
And I met their mother in rehab.
Yeah.
And I read her my first 4. I did it with a priest and then I read it to her.
Yeah.
Was
the relationship over after that?
Yeah.
Was it over after that?
It was over before that. Actually. It was over before that. Yeah. We met in rehab and we used together.
Yeah.
She felt pregnant. You know, that was red house romance. And, you know, by the time the kids were born, I was in prison. I was back in prison by this stage, so it was my first relapse on alcohol. That was the last time I drank, 1982. Yeah.
I actually have managed not to have a drink in the last year and a half, and alcohol was definitely, it was my first poison. I don't think it was my worst poison, but it was my first, and just like, I never thought I'd be able to say that. And something I forgot to mention as well which is amazing, because as I was saying before, like how addiction, you know, trickles out to family, friends, everyone around you, basically, everyone
Yep.
in its orbit. When I got clean the first time from alcohol, I got out of that first rehab. It was during dry July, and I always used to do dry July to prove that, see, I'm not an addict.
Yep.
I can stop for a month. But I was living with my mum at the time, and she was like, I'll do dry July just to make it easier for you to transition back into
Yep.
the world. So she did, and like to this day, I think she's had like 2 nights where she's had a drink, and she's absolutely hated it, but it's pretty much fully sober. And she's not a drug taker. She hasn't been a drug taker at all. And then my dad, who, as I mentioned, was a big drinker, we go on like a family camping trip every January, and he saw like mum and I there, and neither of us were drinking. We're just kind of living life, not missing out on anything.
Yep.
Still getting to enjoy every part of the family holiday, just not waking up without a hangover. And Dad saw that and went, I'm going to give it up too. And he hasn't had a drink since January of this year, and
It's insane.
pretty much everyday drinker. So it's, and like, they're obviously not doing it just for me. If they can keep it going, and they just love the benefits of not drinking so much, that they're like,
find the freedom.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
But it's, as you said,
awesome.
disease affects everybody.
Yeah.
Recovery affects everybody.
Yeah.
It's a ripple effect, like throwing a stone in the creek.
Yeah.
Just all comes out, like
Totally.
people get clean because of you. They meet you and they go like, oh shit, she was hopeless. I didn't think she'd ever get clean.
Yeah.
Then it gives them faith and hope,
Yeah.
I've had so many people say to me, when I first came to the 12-step program, I seen you and I knew how bad you were from jail or from the streets. I thought, well, if he can do it, I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's a compliment,
Yeah.
that's, because I believe our primary purpose is to carry the message to try to help other people get clean.
Yeah.
And while I'm looking after other people, that's the whole purpose of this podcast.
Yeah.
Is to reach people that can't get to meetings or have never been to a meeting or have been to meetings, and they get the identification and they relate and they go like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
If that person can do it, I can do it,
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to come down and sit down and do this stuff.
Yeah.
So,
I was really nervous, to be honest, about doing this. I've never really I've said my life story, but it's different when you've got a script to go off, something you're prepared. But yeah, I was anxious about coming in and telling my story, but I knew that it was something that I had to do. I was like, this is an opportunity that I've been given by, I believe, my high power, or the God of my very limited understanding. And this is something that I have fear around as well, and I feel like I've got to tackle it head first.
Face your fears and recover.
Yeah.
It used to be fuck everything and run.
Yeah. Totally.
Let's face everything and recover.
Yeah.
But there's going to be someone watching this podcast somewhere in the world, and they go like, "Oh wow, I relate to that. Yeah. Oh God, that's how I felt."
Yeah, totally.
And that's what we've got to do. I believe we're obligated to do that. I really do. I believe that we. Yeah. It's it's also a gift. It's a gift to be able to go and help somebody.
Yeah, totally.
And have no expectation.
Yeah.
It's like people planting trees that they're never going to sit under.
Yeah. That's
what we're doing. We're planting seeds.
Yeah.
I don't take credit for anybody's recovery. I say to everybody, I'll tell you where to dig and I'll show you where the shovel is. And if you don't pick up the shovel,
you got to do the work.
You're not going to get nothing.
Yeah.
You don't get clean by osmosis.
Yeah.
It's not like, you don't get clean by sleeping with somebody.
Yeah.
That's, it used to be the old saying, it's not sexually transmitted. Yeah, exactly. We used to say to the guys, and girls, like, if you want, I have to offer. Like not quite like that. Yeah. So, but we're very lucky. We're very blessed.
Yeah.
We've been given an incredible opportunity
totally
to change ourselves. Because we can't change anybody else. We can't change the world. But hopefully by changing ourselves, we encourage other people to walk the same way.
That was my experience, especially with my dad, because that first time I got sober without a program, I was really forceful with him. I was like, you need to stop drinking, yada. And he was like, okay, that's not going to happen. But then when he just saw me living my life and doing it, and I was, I'd totally let go of trying to change him. I was just focusing on what I could do about myself. And as soon as I let go, he picked up the phone and went, I've stopped drinking. I was like, well, would you look at that?
Attraction, not promotion.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
so we're lucky.
pretty incredible.
We're very lucky.
Yeah.
Look, I really, really am grateful you've come over. I'm so blessed to have you come on the show.
I'm so grateful to be here.
And it is an incredible gift. We're very lucky, and I hope that somebody somewhere listens to this and they go like, "Wow, how inspirational!" And I know they will be. We'll get some really good feedback. We'll get some great comments, and and it's so hard because a lot of the women, I don't understand it. I don't understand. Let's be honest. Maybe the men do it more because of their ego. I don't know. But a lot of the women say, "Yeah, I'll do it," and then they back away because they get into their head about it.
Well, see, I wanted to back away,
Yeah.
and I was like, "No, I said I would. I'm going to
Yeah.
stick to what I said I would do, and I know this is going to be a really healing process
Yeah.
for me, and I want to help other people as well."
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Cause we were having this chat at the convention actually, and I was like, "Do you think it's because there's less women in recovery, or do you think it's because
No, I asked
women
the same
put
amount.
Yeah, women it is.
I asked the same amount of women as I do men
True,
to
yeah.
do it. So I try to do one man, one girl, one man, one girl,
Yeah.
one. That's how I try to run it.
Yeah,
And
like meeting.
yeah,
Yeah, I think like women are. Well, I know I definitely am just so self-conscious and so concerned about what people think of me as well.
that'll change.
But yeah, but also like the way I see it, like I didn't find this podcast before I was in recovery, and I think some people maybe are scared of their story being out in the world, but I'm like, the only people that are going to listen to this podcast are people who are either seeking recovery or in recovery.
They're looking for a way out, or
Yeah.
they want information.
Exactly, yeah, or maybe family members of people in recovery or something like that. Like, it's not going to be people that want to be nasty or poke fun at you. It's to inspire. Like,
I don't think. I don't think this podcast is for anybody, but to help anybody. I really don't believe anyone can find this podcast.
Exactly, yeah. I wish I'd found it before I was in recovery.
I have a lot of people give me nice feedback and go, "Wow, like."
Yeah, well, that's how we connected, basically. Like,
I found it by accident. People always tell me, "I found your." Something came up, and I get so many people say, "Oh God," and mostly the people that I get a lot of comments from are people in remote areas that don't go to meetings and can't get to meetings.
Yeah.
And,
Well, that's why I love it, because I do a lot of driving around, long drives, and I just put it on, listen to an episode, and it's like a meeting in a way, like
it is
H&I. Almost.
Exactly, it is exactly the same.
Yeah,
It's exactly the same as living the H&I and having a guest speaker there.
Yeah,
That's why I run it this way.
Yeah,
totally. I don't question it. I don't, I just want it to be natural. That's why I call it the truth.
Yeah,
and I don't care what we talk about. I really don't.
Yeah.
There's no script. There's no structure. There's nothing. It's just two people having a chat about how they got recovery, how they found their lives, what it was like, what they did, and what it's like today.
Totally.
So So all right, darling, I'm going
Thanks
to finish on that. Thank you very much.
Bless you.
Thanks, guys.
Namaste.
Thanks. Namaste.
I solemnly swear that I will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.